Today I wanted to talk about all of the books that I read in July. July was a pretty light reading month for me. I read 4 books. All of them were interesting, I will say that. I liked 3 out of the 4 of them. I guess we can start with the one that I did not like the most, which was Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. This was probably my most anticipated read of this summer for me. I had heard a lot of good things about this book, and it was very underwhelming to me. So the story follows Greta, who lives with her roommate Sabine out in New York. Her job involves transcribing therapy sessions from a sex coach. Out of all of the people she's transcribing sessions for, one of the clients sticks out to her the most, and that is a person that she calls Big Swiss. While she's at a dog park, she recognizes Big Swiss's voice, and they start a conversation and develops a personal relationship with her. As Greta is transcribing the therapy sessions of Big Swiss, it's becoming very hard for her to separate the exchanges made in person with Big Swiss and that of what she has heard on confidential conversations. So this book is basically about Greta trying to keep that relationship intact, feeling somewhat guilty about, breaching confidentiality, but also relishing in the fact that she has met someone that she can be her truest self with. When I read the back description of this book, I thought that this was an amazing idea for a book. I thought it was so clever, and it is very comedic and funny. It kind of mixes dark humor. I found myself laughing out loud at a lot of the absurd things that Greta and Big Swiss talk about. I think that it is very weird and there's a lot of grotesque imagery. I mean that in the best way. I don't mean that as an insult. I do think that this is a very weird book. And I think that Greta and Big Swiss share a lot in common, both with their traumatic pasts. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I will say check the trigger warnings on this book. One of the things that I really didn't like about the book was the ending. I thought it felt unfinished and very underwhelming, which I guess is kind of the point that the author wanted to make, that sometimes all you can do is laugh in bad situations and that life ultimately goes on. But I just don't think I loved the characters or connected with them, and I didn't really care about them. I thought they were complicated individuals. They both did good things, but they also were, really bad human beings. And yeah, it just felt like the ending cut off very abruptly. The way that their relationship develops and the information that we are left about the relationship just felt very abrupt and didn't feel fully fleshed out. So that was the only book that really did not do it for me this month. There would be a special person in my life that I would recommend this to, but the majority of people I would not recommend this book to. Not because of the content or anything like that, just because if someone recommended this book to me and I read that ending, I'd be like, why did you recommend that to me? It just didn't sit right with me. My next book up was Stoner by John Williams. This book has kind of had a resurgence online. A bunch of people have been bringing this up and bringing this piece of literature into the limelight. And I have to say, I really loved this book. I thought the hype on this was going to be something truly profound, but it's not profound and in the best way. William Stoner has lived a life of misfortune and disappointment and misery, and yet he still lives on. He has a failing marriage. His relationship with his daughter is awry. The faculty at his school he doesn't really vibe with. They're just co-workers. His position at the college and university that he works at kind of gets stunted. He has an affair that kind of gets blown up in the university world. But despite all this, he just lives his life. He just lives his life in quiet and solitude. At first, I thought he was kind of, a pushover. I kind of loathed him for being walked over in life. And all of the qualities in his life that should be stable are just not. They just get uprooted, and yet he just remains constant. His outlook, I wouldn't say he's doing it intentionally, but to the reader, and especially to me, it is so inspiring to have everything in life go wrong and you still want to live on. I thought that he was just letting his life pass him by and he just wanted to get on with life as soon as possible, but I think he was just living his life in the best way that he knew how to. It really felt like you were living right next to him. It was so immersive, and to kind of see him evolve and grow up was a very cool way to learn about this character. It's so interesting because a lot of the time I was reading about the other characters, I was telling myself that they were the reason why he was not living life to his fullest potential. Like, his wife is kind of kooky and nuts, and his daughter could stand up and talk to him, but they don't. And I was like, why are they just like a barricade in his life? But honestly, he does let this happen to himself. I love the atmosphere of this book. It was set at university, so it felt very academic, and you truly only ever really see him stand up for something and be so hell-bent on it when he is kind of at a contention point of letting this student pass to get his PhD, or like to study his PhD, and he's like, no, he's not a good student, he doesn't study. He basically says that the student needs to go back. He doesn't know anything about like elementary English, stuff that you learn in first year. And he is so confident in himself in the world of like English and literature that he stands his ground and doesn't let the other faculty kind of tell him that he needs to pass this guy. This is like a big turmoil point in the book. His colleagues kind of look at him. One colleague in particular, who's kind of like his enemy, is the student's mentor. So there's a lot of bad blood between them. I found that very interesting. I also thought that he was going to let the student pass and that he wasn't going to care. But I think that's like the one thing that he loves, and that's his true love and he has fallen in love with, is literature. And I don't know why, but I just love that so much. I think it's crazy that despite him being such a flawed character, I truly love him so much. He is just like so real, and I just really like him as a character despite his choices and despite how his life turns out. That was a very excellent book, and after reading Big Swiss, I really needed this. My next book up is A Truce That Is Not Peace by Miriam Toews. I'm not going into too much detail on this book because I don't rate memoirs. I don't give them a star rating. I feel like it's kind of weird to rate someone's life on a star point system. I will say that I love this book. The book opens up with her writing for an organizer, I think it's in Mexico, and the writing prompt is, "Why do you write?" And she is trying to answer this question, and a bunch of her past trauma and her guilt and her family life comes up in the process of this writing. So she's kind of taking us through her backstory and just sharing how entwined writing and personal memory and past can really impact that. I thought it was very good. It's my first Miriam Toews book, and I'm so glad that my first piece of literature was her memoir. I got a really good idea of how and who she really is through her personal writing, and it really makes me excited to read more of her fiction pieces. And my last piece of literature this month was Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski. This book was so good. It's set in the early 80s in Poland, so the economic crisis is happening. Communism is failing in this country, and there's a lot of political unrest. goods and medicine and all of basic needs are being shorted. So there's like a great divide in the people who are in power and the common people. The novel starts off with Ludwig and Janusz who meet at summer camp. They are there for agricultural summer camp, and they decide that after their summer camp ends, they're going to go camping in the woods before returning to Warsaw to start their real life jobs. While they are camping, they start a romance, an affair, and when they return home for work, they are just propelled into adulthood, and they realize how different they are from each other. Ludwig, our main character and narrator, is a PhD student, or he's trying to get his PhD. He's working on his proposal, and he's also questioning a lot of the regime and kind of what side of the politics he wants to be on, whereas Janusz is holding a government position, so he is very much on the party side. So because of this, they're thrust on different ends of the political scale, and Ludwig actually ends up dabbling in some protest, while Janusz is trusting the power that the government position he's holding will propel him forward in his career. So it's exploring, their first love, but also how the politics and the political unrest is interwoven through their relationship. I love the concept of this book, how it's from Ludwig's perspective. It's kind of a letter to Janusz, even though he doesn't know if he's going to ever send this or if Janusz will ever see this, if he wants him to see this. But he's just recounting his life to Janusz because that's something that they never really talked about. They never really talked about their pasts. So I think it's really beautiful that he's writing this for his first love. It was very beautiful and poetic, the way that he talks about the recollection of his past and how he reflects upon that, how he remembers their first meeting and all of the other times they met up while they were adults or young adults. I think this book does a great job of kind of the power dynamic or the dynamic shift of the political advantage of power. It talks about like how you have to have a contact or someone who is high up in the rankings to even get medicine, to even get good meat and food. And I love how they portray Ludwig as kind of the people and Janusz as kind of the people who are oppressing or who have power over these people, who don't care at any means necessary. They will do anything to hold that position and to get what they want. And so as they interact, you can kind of see Ludwig questioning this, wondering if like this is the right way to live. At first, he thinks it's great that Janusz can be that person that can help him live a life, but what is that life when other people are suffering in Poland and just because they don't have someone like Janusz to him. So it's a very complicated good versus evil power dynamic. I really loved it. I thought it was so good. I actually waited to read this. I think I got it in December of last year, and I waited because I wanted to read this in the summer, and it did not disappoint. I'm so glad I waited. It was incredible. So yeah, those are the 4 books that I read this month. I can't believe that it is almost August. It's crazy how this year has flown by. I'm still doing good. I have a Storygraph goal of reading 40 books this year, and I am on 35 books. So I'm doing good. I'm chugging along. I'm actually way ahead, which is great. But yeah, I'm excited to leave some of the summer books behind and start to get into the lovely, cozy fall books. I have a big stack of fall books and autumnal and cozy books that I just can't wait to dive into. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.